In today's podcast, I had the opportunity to talk to one of my dearest friends, Dr. Joe Lizza, who's Director of Campus Activities at Rowan University. We had a phenomenal conversation about the shifts that have been made when it comes to student life, student engagement, technology challenges, family challenges, all of the issues that we are seeing across the board in the field of education. Joe has done a fantastic job in his role working with the administrative team at Rowan University to try to come up with every possible scenario for their students and ways to help them still succeed in both learning and making it through the day-to-day. It doesn't matter if you are a K-12 teacher or you are in higher education, you will get a lot out of the things that Joe talks about today. And a lot of the concepts that he developed or came up with or implemented are certainly things that we can all use in our classroom as well.
Welcome to the Student-Centered World Podcast, where we talk about all things hands-on teaching and keeping your energy and sanity in the classroom. This teacher turned consultant is making it her mission to help as many teachers as possible become the best version of themselves and keep their passion for teaching on fire. It's her hope that we never forget why we desire to have a passion for educational progress. This is Student-Centered World, and this is Jen Bry Soccer.
Okay, so starting out, why don't you let everybody know who you are, what you do, and all that good stuff?
So my name is Dr. Joe Lizza, and I'm the Director of the Student Center and Campus Activities at Rowan University in New Jersey. I oversee a lot of the programmatic student life areas on campus, the activities that occur on campus, work very closely with large-scale events, and also manage our student center. So the day-to-day operations of a space on campus that builds campus community, has various offices, food service, and resources for students to get engaged.
And how have you found that has either changed or stayed the same, or what, modifications have you made since all of this hoopla began?
So we, I guess I don't want to say if we're fortunate or unfortunate, but we have pretty much stayed in operation since all of this started. Because we provide some essential services on campus, we were required to keep operations going. Of course, we adjusted them, we reduced them, and we put in a lot of different safety regulations and precautions in. However, from around March, where things started to get a little crazy, we were open with limited staffing, and we really focused on providing the essential tools that students needed to continue their education. So there were students that lived on campus throughout because they had nowhere else to go, or where they came from was actually worse than where the university is located. So in terms of cases. Additionally, we did a lot of interventions for students that needed technology. A lot of students do not, surprisingly enough, college students do not all have laptops and printers and all that. They rely on the university. So we had a program where the university purchased Chromebooks, and we were able to distribute them in person to students. And we also provided food service for those individuals on campus, and pretty much anything that had to provide any support services for students. We were kind of the home base because a lot of the other buildings and offices and staff were remote. So we were kind of the I don't know, like my staff, the guinea pigs or, the test subjects of all this, that we kind of had to live this from the beginning. So, yep.
And I think one of the things that really became noticeable, and people in education sort of knew this all along, but out in the mainstream, is the fact that there is that huge disparity between students. So you would think, it's a college campus, so everybody, has the technology and, I don't want to say can afford to be there, but, you just have this stereotype almost of the typical college student. Do you find that was, heavily in the forefront, or, did that become a priority for your institution to really focus in on those students that were less fortunate?
Yeah, I think pretty early on, which I think, I don't want to say was surprising, but it's something that everyone jumped on right away, whether that was because when the university decided to make this switch to say we're going to go remote, we're going to do all this. Maybe there was a lot of students that actually verbalized that they had problems, but the university did really jump onto providing access to. We continued our food pantry. We continued our. We team up with Phil Abundance to do fresh fruit and vegetable delivery or pickup. So we continued those services. We worked with Comcast regarding some like internet hotspots and access to that. So, of course, I don't think it was perfect for these students that were struggling, but we did put things out there to try to help them get to be able to sustain their studies and to compete with the rest of the university community. Additionally, we really recognize that there was everything about Wi-Fi. We realize a lot of students do not have internet access at home. So we also found that students did still come to campus to access some of those resources. And that's why we did remain open. It wasn't a lot of students. There were also students that needed a place that was quiet, out of the way, because they're home with their brothers and sisters. This is true for K to 12 and higher ed. Everyone's in one house, parents working. So we also provided some private study spaces as well. In our building, maybe we had, a few students throughout those couple of months, but there was consistency that they came every couple of days and they enjoyed being in a room by themselves with quiet, with Wi-Fi, with access to printing facilities. So I think the university really did take the right steps. And I hope that the students recognize that, there were definitely intentionality behind some of the initiatives.
Sure. And did you find that you had some of the, I don't want to say same type of issues, but like parallel problems with staff members, also trying to make that leap and do things digital or have the technology that they needed?
Yeah. So, I would say, since my wife is a K to 12 teacher, I knew some of the challenges that they were going through. My staff as well, that we deal with students in person, face to face. That's how we've always interacted. I have staff that do advising of student clubs and organizations, work with students such, in Greek life and all these different areas that what they were used to were students coming into their office, that open door and interacting. That changed several times, like throughout this whole pandemic. Things have changed so many different ways because we initially were very reactionary and we're like, okay, everyone needs to go away. And now we weren't prepared. But then throughout the course of the summer, we started to get a little stronger and develop what we were going to do for the spring, which is a lot like the K to 12 world, was that, we figured out how do we start to host virtual programming and how do we check in with our staff, our student staff, even though maybe they're not working but they receive so much support and guidance from my full-time staff that they still wanted that connection and that support and the advisement. So they did weekly check-ins on Zoom. And, we decided to have to really adjust the way of what normal work was. And the university was very supportive in that they allowed the managers of each area to kind of figure out what works best for them. For the most part, like I said, most staff was initially all remote, and if a department needed on-site staff, so such as public safety or housing, they figured out what was an appropriate amount of staff, and then they rotated them appropriately so that, staff that they don't have to be here every day. They might have been here one or 2 days a week. If there were staff with any underlying health conditions, they were giving some priority. But I definitely see that there was such a shift from being shocked, like, oh, we have to not meet with people, we have to work from home, to, okay, we're getting through this, and it may not be ideal, but we're doing okay.
Yeah, and it sounds like your administration was definitely on board with that. I mean, when March happened, nobody knew what to do. I don't think anybody at any level in education really had the best plan, and there was certainly no best practices in place for a situation like this. And I know a lot of places are still struggling, even at this point right now, it's October, trying to figure out how do we move forward, will it go back to normal? Did you, just in your interactions with other professionals at other institutions find that their administration was not as strong, or, was still resistant to change? Or does it seem like everybody, for the most part, is trying their best to truck forward?
Yeah, I think a lot of the institutions as a whole have been, promoting that change. And, every school is different, and every administration and leadership is different. So, it's hard to say that everyone had the same experience in terms of support from the senior level administration, the president and the board of trustees. However, it seems like as a field itself, so from interacting with colleagues in, listservs and Facebook groups and all that, that the field itself of kind of higher ed, student engagement, student life, have embraced it. And I think while we're looking forward to getting back to some of the normalcy and the face-to-face, I think some of the things that we've developed and learned are going to carry forward post-COVID. So especially because there's populations of students that we don't interact with as much. So, there's commuter students, there's graduate students that never come to campus really. So how do we do virtual programs? How do we keep students that aren't on campus engaged? And if there was if you're a commuter student, sometimes the only option you had was to come to campus for a late night event or stay late after classes. Now you might be able to participate virtually, at the same time as others are in person. So, we've developed that technology. We've upgraded our meeting spaces on campus. In my building, there's 2 rooms that are fully kind of virtual ready with cameras and ceiling microphones that can pick up and talk. So we can host an event in person while live streaming it to others. So I think as a field and we have really done what we can to develop sustainable practices. And that's what I've told my staff all along, even in March when we were like, all the things that we normally did, we can't do. And maybe at that point they felt like they just had no, I don't want to say purpose, but they weren't able to fulfill the responsibilities that they thought they had to do. I told them, just use that time to develop something that you can use in the future. We never have time to develop stuff. We're always working to stay, our head above water. So use that time to actually work on something that, not right now. We're not doing it right now, but work on it, develop it, and then you can launch it when we get out of this situation. And a lot of them did really kind of jump on that. And I think, at the same time, they were thinking, well, we also have to serve students now. And they've developed those other programs virtually and, both virtual and, in person.
And I think there's a lot of silver linings that are coming out of this. As much as everybody's scrambling and feeling like they're drowning, especially, teachers that are in the classroom right now trying to manage it all, I think we are going to have a lot of good that do come out of it. Like you said, commuter students in college finally can participate in events. I've been saying to teachers all along, you're finding new programs that maybe you never would have at the time before learning about or implementing, and now you love them and you're going to use them forever. So as hard as it is for everybody, and as much as the shift is we didn't want to make, I think there is a lot of good coming out of it as well. Now, I know that you are also in the classroom teaching college students as well. What is it that you are focusing on right now?
So right now, I'm teaching. I've taught for quite several years, focusing on leadership, some higher ed courses focused on undergraduate students. I'm teaching an undergraduate course right now, which teaches a lot of college skills. So for students that were maybe borderline getting admitted. So that's the course that I'm focusing on right now. In the spring, I'll be teaching in the higher ed master's program. So that will be a positive, change, I believe, in the type of course that I'm teaching, the students, the way they interact. Right now, I think teaching a course in college is similar to, teaching the course virtually, in a high school environment as well. The students I'm teaching are freshmen, so they're not too far out from a senior in high school. And it's definitely a challenging environment to keep them engaged, especially in a topic such as college skills that they don't necessarily think they need, and they don't actually see how that connects to their career path, because it doesn't in terms of like the ideas of their knowledge of their field, but it lays the foundation and, base for all their success in all their future courses. So what I've tried to do is, engage as much as possible. So my course is fully remote, but it's synchronous learning. So they have to be logged in at the course meeting time, and they engage with me during the class. Some of the courses on campus are fully kind of online, where you just open up read the module and go from there. But they have to log in. So we do get to interact. And I've been trying ways to kind of engage them in different manners. We do a lot with Google Docs and stuff like that. So I'll ask questions during class and then have them engage in a Google form to get their responses. So that keeps it private if they don't want everyone to know their answers, but also allows me to monitor that they're paying attention. Something challenging, but I also think it's a positive, is that we don't require students to be on live the webcam. So we don't require them to have the webcam on, which, for those that truly can't put the webcam on or don't want to because of their home environment or some other reason, I think that's fully understandable. The challenge is those students that are actually just not engaging in the conversation. So I try to do whatever I can to, I don't want to say trick them, but, do those points that they have to check in throughout the course meeting, just to make sure that they're staying engaged. So I've definitely found it's been difficult, but luckily, the university has provided a lot of resources for faculty, especially faculty who have no experience using online resources and Zoom and WebEx and Google. They might be the most brilliant lecturer and knowledgeable about their topic, but they're not used to this. So luckily the university has provided a range of workshops all prior to the semester starting, so that those faculty members can be more comfortable turning on Zoom and switching on their camera or sharing a screen. So I think that's really been a positive.
Sure. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Is there one thing that you tried for engagement that as soon as you did it, you're like, okay, this is something I need to try to do all the time. This works.
So I actually didn't come up with it. And I know it's not really, I've used Google Forms before, but what I did was throughout my lecture and presentation, where I normally would say I have class interaction and actually have people chime in, what's your time management? What is one of your best time management strategies, or how would you rate your time management? And everyone raised their hand, and it's hard in a Zoom environment because everyone's talking over each other. I can't go around the room and say, okay, John, you can speak now, and it slows down the pace. So I've done that. I've basically created a simple Google form that I keep reusing, and it just says name and the answer to the question. And then I keep up the actual running, tally sheet Excel document with all the responses. And as they're typing them in, I see them. It also timestamps. So because it timestamps, I know that they're not rewatching, because I do also put my presentations on. We use Canvas right now for students that miss class. So I also know if they were zoned out for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and they go back and click on it, the question that I asked is not in the actual Google form. It's on the presentation. So it kind of I'm not trying to catch students not pay attention, but at least I could see that if all of a sudden, a student responds to the question 20 minutes later, something's up. But I think that has been helpful to keep them engaged, or at least at the screen. I don't know, if they're necessarily learning more, but they have been very thoughtful in their responses. But I think I think anyone who teaches with virtually knows it just takes a lot more time to get through students answering things, because you're going in a weird, you can't have people just shoot their hand up, and as soon as one person's winding down in the classroom, the next student kind of knows to okay, I could talk now. It's hard. You don't have that same sense of I don't know. It just makes it a little different. So.
Sure. And then is there anything that you tried that absolutely failed miserably immediately? And you were like, we're just not going to play that game again.
So I've had a lot of trouble with students with showing videos. So I think with people's internet capacities and abilities. So even the campuses, sometimes I do better at home than on campus with the internet. But a lot of my presentations, and even I bring in some guest speakers from around the campus, they have videos or short clips or TED Talks or something like that. And with the buffering and all the remote, it comes back, it's horrible. Either they don't have sound, I don't have, or it's delayed. So what I've learned to do, and I don't think it's not the best use of time, but if there's something I really want to share, is that I basically will pause class, send the link to the YouTube, or if I put the video somewhere else, I'll send that in the chat and then allow them to watch it. I know if it's a 5-minute video, I give them about 5 minutes and 30 seconds and then come back as a class. So it allows them, once again, I don't know if they're actually doing it, but it works better than having everyone say, I can't hear, or the buffering, or the screen freezes on their end, and I have no idea that that's what's happening. So
something to consider to counter that, there is a website, it's called Edpuzzle, and you can put a video in there, and you can actually embed questions in the video if you would like. So the video will pause, and it'll ask the questions, and it could be a short answer, it could be multiple choice, it could be whatever. And you can monitor in real time who's actively watching it, who's done, who's answered all of the questions. So even though, you send them on their way, you can actually see where everybody is in that process. So that might help to at least know that they are engaging in the videos. So
sounds
something
good
to consider. Yeah.
Yep.
Fun little fact that you find out. Is there anything else that you want our audience to know about, how this whole process is going, or just, words of advice?
Well, I think focusing on the staff perspective, so, being a supervisor of a team of staff, I think it's just important to really monitor everyone's well-being. Everyone beyond the actual work that they do, on campus, they have a lot of other things going on with their families, with, just dealing with this. And everyone has different levels of understanding of what's going on, as well as just being comfortable. So, I know there's staff on this campus, not particularly in my department, but that, haven't gone out since this started. Like the fact that they go to like Target would be, a huge step for them. So there are people who have fears. So really monitoring my staff's well-being has been a priority, and being flexible. So like early on, I wanted to not make it like I expected the same amount of work and the same amount of output that was, prior to COVID, so but I also wanted to provide some structure, because some people need that structure in order to just find purpose in what they're doing. Like, so I didn't want to say you need to produce the same amount. You need to, if you're working from home, you need to make sure that you put in your full, 40-hour work week. I understand that it's not going to be possible. We also were very flexible with put in the hours when you can. If you have kids at home, if you can work from, 6 to 9 and take that time during the day to spend time with your kids or to go over schoolwork, in their classes, go for it. And I also say that it's like this buzzword around with COVID is like the word like pivot. And it sometimes drives me crazy because it's used so much, but it is true that, we need to just kind of pivot every day and be flexible and able to adapt. So that's really something that I've tried to do with my staff, and, know that I'm here to support them. We still have a job to do, but it's okay that it looks a little different, and, it might not be what we expect. I have a lot of staff that are those, perfectionists, overachievers. They want to do the best possible thing. And that might not always be possible, in this environment. But, keep them going, keep them engaged, keep them sustained in what they're doing, so that we come out stronger in the end.
Yeah, and it sounds like you guys are doing a really good job of that. Do you have anything that's upcoming that you're going to be, launching or unrolling, or is it just kind of we're going to go with it and ride the wave and hope this ends at some point?
So like I said, we've been doing a variety of programming, and in terms of like the building itself, the student center has been open, supporting students, food service. They can come in and interact with people. We also have put up outdoor tents, which are also going to get heaters inside. So people that don't want to eat inside, and we have some designated areas that they can still eat outside, so they don't have to end up eating in their car in between classes. And we'll have heated areas for that with lights and everything like that. In terms of programming, we're really ramping up the both virtual and in-person, so we're keeping it both moving. And something that we kind of started even in the summer is that we're doing programming and different things to engage students throughout the year and not just during your fall and spring semesters. So that was typically what we did. In the summer, we ended up doing a bunch of virtual programming, some of it alongside our enrollment management staff, because it was to engage new students that were coming in. We did programs with alumni to engage alumni, but also we're going to be doing programming during Thanksgiving. I don't want to call it a break, but the weekend of Thanksgiving, because students are going to be here. There's states that are on the, quarantine travel list advisory for New Jersey. So if they were to go home for Thanksgiving, they would have to quarantine for up to 14 days. And that's not manageable when classes start again on Monday. So students are not traveling home, or their state might just be in a worse state, situation than us. So the university is providing a special Thanksgiving dinner, not just a food court, pick up your food, but something run by our dean of students. So, and then the same for winter break, recognizing, yes, a lot of people are going to go home, but students are going to start to come back earlier because they need to self-quarantine themselves. So while, yes, most people we think would be gone for Christmas, New Year's, winter break on college campuses runs for about a month. So they will be coming back earlier and earlier. So making sure there's engagement opportunities for them prior to the start of classes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like I said, it sounds like you guys are doing all of the right things and have some great stuff planned. And I think the students that go to your school are very fortunate because of the work that you are doing. So if our listeners want to reach out to you, ask questions or anything, what is the best way that they can reach you?
So the best way would probably be through LinkedIn. So I'm on there. I keep it very updated. You can search me just by Joe Lizza, and I'll be the one that works at Rowan University. So, but, you could send me a message, or you could, connect, and, I'm happy to answer any questions in regards to, like I said, we do a lot on campus about staff well-being, supporting staff. There's always more that we can do, because I think it changes every day what challenges are facing the staff. So, but being there, and I've always, tried to be that openness in not only trying to help, but open in where we are in a process, because I think that's what I appreciate from my supervisors, telling me, look, where are we at? What are we going to be doing? Don't try to sugarcoat it too much, so that we don't waste our time. So I'm definitely happy to answer any questions or connect with any of you.
All right, that's awesome. So thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.